There is something that happened to you that you have not been able to explain. Not a dream, not a feeling, something specific. A name you were thinking about appeared on your phone before you could reach for it. A book fell open to the exact page you needed. You were at the lowest point you had ever been, and a stranger said the precise words that pulled you back. You thought of someone you had not spoken to in years, and within the hour they called. You asked a question inside your own mind, silently, to no one, and the answer came back through the radio, through a billboard, through a conversation you were not supposed to hear. You filed it under coincidence. You had to. The alternative was too large to hold, but it stayed with you. It stayed with you because coincidence has a particular texture, a flat, accidental quality, like bumping into a chair in the dark. What you experienced did not feel like that. It felt like the chair had been placed there intentionally by something that knew you were coming, by something that knew exactly what you needed to find in the dark. That feeling, that specific sense of being responded to by the structure of reality itself, is not a malfunction of your pattern recognition. It is not wishful thinking dressed in spiritual clothing. It is not confirmation bias, though that is the first thing you will be told when you try to describe it to someone who has not felt it. What you experienced is a synchronicity, and what I am about to show you is the layer beneath that word, the layer beneath the experience itself, the mechanism underneath the mystery, and beneath that mechanism, something older than any instrument that could measure it. Because here is what most people do when they have a synchronicity. They feel it, they wonder about it for a day or a week. They maybe tell someone who either validates them or talks them out of it, and then they return to the surface. They return to treating reality as a fixed, indifferent structure that runs by mechanical rules, and they file the experience in the drawer marked unexplained. What they never do is look beneath the experience. They never ask what kind of universe would have to exist for that to happen. They never follow the thread down through the layers to where it leads. And that thread, if you follow it all the way down, does not lead to mysticism or wishful thinking. It leads to something that quantum mechanics has been pointing at for nearly a century. Something that ancient traditions mapped with extraordinary precision, thousands of years before the instruments existed to confirm it. And something that changes not just how you understand synchronicity, but how you understand the nature of reality itself. We are going to follow that thread today, all the way down. But first, let us establish the surface. Let us look at what you think you know about synchronicity, because the surface understanding is itself a veil, and you cannot lift a veil you have not first seen clearly. The word itself was coined by Carl Jung in the early 20th century. Jung was not a mystic, at least not primarily. He was a psychiatrist, a scientist, a man trained in the rigorous observation of human psychology. And he noticed something that his training had not prepared him for. He noticed that his patients, with regularity that could not be attributed to chance, experienced events in the external world that mirrored with uncanny precision the inner events of their psyche, not caused by their inner state, mirrored by it, as though the inner and outer were not separate systems at all, but two faces of a single process. The famous case that crystallized his thinking involved a patient who was describing a dream about a golden scarab beetle. The scarab, in Egyptian mythology, was a symbol of transformation, of death and rebirth, of the soul moving through darkness toward light. As the patient described this dream in Jung's office, something struck the window pane. Jung turned and opened the window, and a golden scarab beetle flew into the room, the only specimen of that species ever found in that region of Switzerland. At that precise moment, during the telling of that precise dream, Jung did not pretend this was coincidence. He also did not claim it was supernatural in the sense of violating natural law. What he proposed was something more radical and more precise than either of those explanations. He proposed that meaning itself was a structural feature of reality, not a projection that the human mind imposes on a meaningless universe, not a story we tell ourselves to feel less alone in an indifferent cosmos. Meaning, he argued, was woven into the fabric of what exists, the same way that physical laws are woven into it. He called the principle acausality. Events connected not by cause and effect, not by one thing pushing another thing in a linear chain, but by meaning, by a kind of resonance between the inner and the outer that operates beneath the causal level entirely. That is the surface understanding. Jung, golden beetle, meaningful coincidence, acausality. Most people stop there. They learn the word synchronicity. They recognize it when it happens. They feel validated that someone with credentials gave it a name, and they return to their lives. But there is a layer beneath that. If you are ready to take what we have just touched on deeper, listen up.
Have you spent years trying every surface fix? Therapy, mindset work, manifestation, habit redesign, and the same patterns keep coming back in different clothes. Every one of those tools is working on belief and behavior. The actual pattern was installed deeper than any of them can reach. Beneath the veil, a quantum map of reality's hidden layers walks through the full 5-layer descent, the surface reality you were handed, the layer where the pattern was actually installed, the physics underneath that, the ancient traditions that mapped the same thing thousands of years ago, and what you actually are at the bottom of all of it. This is the layer that therapy, mindset work, and manifestation could never reach. The longer you keep working the surface, the longer that deeper layer keeps generating the same life. So do this one tonight. It's waiting in the pinned comment below.
Now, back to the thread we were following. Because Jung did not arrive at a causality by himself. He developed the concept in direct collaboration with one of the most important physicists of the 20th century, a man who was working at the same time on a problem in quantum mechanics that turned out to be, structurally, the same problem. That physicist was Wolfgang Pauli, and the problem he was working on was the problem of what connects things that have no physical connection. Pauli was one of the architects of quantum mechanics. He formulated the exclusion principle that bears his name, a foundational rule about how matter organizes itself at the quantum level. He was not a man given to vague speculation. He was precise, rigorous, and famously brutal in his criticism of imprecise thinking. He once said of a colleague's paper that it was not even wrong, meaning it was so poorly constructed it could not even achieve the dignity of being incorrect. And yet Pauli spent years in correspondence with Jung, working through a problem that neither physics nor psychology alone could solve. because Pauli had noticed something in quantum mechanics that mirrored exactly what Jung had noticed in the psyche. He had noticed that at the quantum level, the distinction between the observer and the observed, between the inner and the outer, between mind and matter, was not a clean distinction at all. It was a boundary that quantum mechanics had already dissolved, quietly, in the mathematics, before anyone had fully reckoned with what that dissolution meant. Let me show you that layer. Let me show you what quantum mechanics actually found beneath the surface of matter, because this is where the veil begins to lift in a way that changes everything. Quantum mechanics developed through the early and middle decades of the 20th century was not designed to produce mystical conclusions. It was designed to explain the behavior of subatomic particles, the electrons, photons, and quanta of energy that make up everything you see, touch, and call solid. It was engineering, in a sense, a set of tools for predicting how the smallest constituents of reality would behave. But the tools kept producing results that violated every assumption the scientists brought to the work. And the most disturbing of those results, the one that still sits at the center of quantum mechanics like a splinter that cannot be removed, is this: particles do not have definite properties until they are measured. Take a single electron. Before you measure its position, it does not have a position. It exists in a superposition, a spread of all the positions it could possibly have, each with a certain probability. The electron is not in one place, and we just do not know which place. It is genuinely, physically, in all possible positions, at once, described by a wave function that spreads through space like a ripple on water. The moment you measure it, the wave function collapses. The electron snaps into a single definite position, but before that measurement, there is no single position to snap into. The definiteness itself is created by the act of observation. This is not a metaphor. This is not a philosophical interpretation layered on top of the physics. This is what the mathematics of quantum mechanics says, and it has been confirmed by experiments of extraordinary precision for nearly 100 years. The most famous of those experiments is the double-slit experiment, which you may have heard of, but which most people have not followed all the way down to what it actually implies. Here is the experiment. You fire particles, one at a time, at a barrier with two narrow slits. On the other side of the barrier, you have a detector screen. If particles were simply tiny bullets, you would expect them to go through one slit or the other and create two bands on the screen, one behind each slit. What you get instead is an interference pattern. Dozens of alternating bands of light and dark spread across the screen, the signature not of particles but of waves, waves that pass through both slits simultaneously, interfere with themselves, and create a pattern that no single particle traveling through a single slit could possibly produce. The particle, traveling alone, interferes with itself, which means it must be going through both slits at once, which means it is not a particle in the way you picture a particle. It is a wave of possibility, a spread of potential paths, all of which are simultaneously real until the moment of measurement. Now here is where it gets stranger. When you place a detector at the slits to find out which one the particle actually goes through, the interference pattern disappears. The moment you observe which path the particle takes, it takes one path. The wave collapses. The interference, the evidence of simultaneous possibility, vanishes. The act of observation does not just reveal which slit the particle went through. It determines which slit the particle went through. The measurement does not find the answer. It creates the answer. Sit with that for a moment. Because what this means is not a small thing. What this means is that, at the most fundamental level of physical reality, the level from which everything you see and touch is constructed, the universe does not consist of definite things in definite states. It consists of probabilities, of superpositions, of waves of possibility that become definite only in the moment of interaction with an observer. The solidity you see around you, the fixed, finished, settled quality of the world, is not a property of the world itself. It is what happens at the surface when the quantum depth below is observed. The world is not solid all the way down. Beneath the surface of solidity is a quantum field of pure potentiality, and that field does not become definite until something looks at it. That is the layer beneath the surface of matter. And now we need to go one layer deeper, because this is where synchronicity stops being a mysterious anomaly and starts being exactly what you would expect from a universe built this way. If this kind of exploration is what you come here for, like this video and subscribe so you do not miss where the next thread leads. There is another quantum phenomenon that Pauli was working with in his correspondence with Jung, one that is even more directly relevant to the question of how a universe could produce meaningful coincidences. That phenomenon is called quantum entanglement. When two particles interact in certain ways, they become entangled. Their quantum states become correlated in a way that persists, no matter how far apart they are subsequently separated. If you measure one particle and find it in a particular state, its entangled partner will instantaneously be found in the corresponding state, regardless of the distance between them. Not after a signal has traveled between them, instantaneously. Faster than light could carry any message. Einstein called this spooky action at a distance and spent years trying to prove it was impossible. In 1964, physicist John Bell devised a mathematical test that could determine whether the correlations between entangled particles were due to some hidden classical mechanism or were genuinely non-local, genuinely instantaneous connections with no physical carrier. The experiments that followed, carried out with increasing precision over subsequent decades, culminating in the Nobel Prize-winning work of Alain Aspect, John Clauser, and Anton Zeilinger in 2022, confirmed beyond any serious scientific doubt that entanglement is real. The correlations are genuine. The connection is non-local. There is no hidden signal. There is no classical mechanism. Two particles that have interacted remain connected across any distance, and what happens to one is instantaneously reflected in the other, not through any physical medium, but through the structure of the quantum field itself. The universe, at its deepest measurable level, is non-local. It is not a collection of separate things in separate places. It is a web of correlations, a field of entangled possibilities in which separation is a surface appearance and connection is the deeper reality. Now, hold that in your mind. Hold the image of a universe in which particles that have interacted remain connected across any distance, in which the act of observation collapses possibility into actuality, in which the boundary between observer and observed is not a hard boundary, but a permeable membrane. Hold that, and then ask yourself what kind of experiences you would expect such a universe to produce. You would expect exactly what Jung described. You would expect moments in which the inner state of a conscious observer, which is itself a quantum system embedded in the quantum field, resonates with events in the external world in ways that appear to violate the causal, mechanical rules of the surface. Because those causal, mechanical rules are surface rules. They describe the behavior of the collapsed, classical, definite world that emerges from the quantum depth. They do not describe the quantum depth itself, and the quantum depth is non-local, entangled, and responsive to observation in ways that the surface rules cannot account for. Synchronicity is not a violation of natural law. It is an emergence from the deeper layer of natural law that most people never reach. But here is what is important to understand, and this is the layer that most discussions of synchronicity and quantum mechanics miss entirely. The connection is not random. Entangled particles do not correlate randomly. They correlate according to the nature of their prior interaction, according to the specific relationship that created the entanglement. The correlations are structured. They carry information about the relationship, and this is precisely what distinguishes a synchronicity from a coincidence. A coincidence is a random correlation, two events that happen to occur together without any meaningful connection. A synchronicity is a structured correlation. The external event does not just happen at the same time as the inner event. It mirrors it. It reflects it with a precision that carries information. The golden scarab does not just appear when Jung's patient is in his office. It appears during the telling of a dream about a golden scarab. The specificity of the mirror is the signature of the entanglement. Something in the structure of reality is carrying information between the inner state and the outer event, not through a causal mechanism. Through a resonance that operates beneath the causal level, in the quantum field where everything is connected and the boundary between inner and outer has not yet hardened into the surface separation we take for granted. This is where the ancient traditions become relevant. Because the quantum field was not discovered in the 20th century, it was mapped. It was mapped by traditions that had no instruments, no mathematics, no particle accelerators, but had something else: sustained, disciplined attention directed at the layer beneath the surface of experience. And what they found, described in the language of their time and culture, is structurally identical to what quantum mechanics found with instruments. Let me take you to one specific tradition, because the specificity matters. The abstraction does not serve you here. What serves you is the precision of the map. In the Hindu philosophical tradition, specifically in the school of thought known as Advaita Vedanta, which reaches back at least 3,000 years and finds its most rigorous expression in the Upanishads and later in the work of the 8th century philosopher Adi Shankaracharya, there is a concept called Brahman. Brahman is the ultimate ground of reality, the substratum beneath all appearance, the single undivided field of pure consciousness from which all individual things arise as temporary expressions. The word translates roughly as the expansive, the boundless, that which grows. But the specific teaching that is relevant here is not just about Brahman as a ground. It is about the relationship between Brahman and what the tradition calls the individual self, the Atman. The teaching of Advaita Vedanta is that Atman and Brahman are identical. The individual self and the universal ground are not two things in relationship. They are one thing appearing as two from the perspective of the surface. The sense of being a separate individual, a self bounded by skin and biography, looking out at an external world that is other than you, is what the tradition calls Maya, which is often translated as illusion, but is more precisely translated as appearance, the surface appearance of a unity that is the deeper reality. From the surface, there is you and there is the world. From the depth, there is only the field, and you are a localized expression of it, the same way a wave is a localized expression of the ocean. The wave is real. It has a shape, a height, a direction, but it is not separate from the ocean. It is the ocean, temporarily organized into that form. Now translate this into the language of quantum mechanics, and what you have is this. The individual observer and the quantum field are not separate. The observer is a localized expression of the field. When the observer's inner state resonates with a particular possibility, the field, of which the observer is an expression, organizes itself to reflect that resonance in the external world. Not because the observer is controlling the field from outside it, because the observer and the field are the same thing, and the surface boundary between inner and outer is exactly that, a surface. The Vedantic tradition did not call this synchronicity. They called it the recognition of non-separation, the moment when the veil of Maya thins enough that the unity beneath it becomes perceptible. A synchronicity in this framework is not an anomaly. It is a moment of clarity, a moment when the surface separateness temporarily dissolves and the underlying unity becomes visible in the form of a perfect mirror between inner and outer. What hidden layer have you recently discovered beneath the surface of your own reality? A truth that was always there, a pattern you suddenly saw through, a moment when the inner and outer spoke to each other in a way you could not explain away. Drop it in the comments. The specific details of your experience are exactly what this exploration is built from. But let me take you to a second tradition, because the convergence from multiple independent sources is itself part of the evidence. In the Chinese philosophical tradition, specifically in the Taoist understanding that runs from Laozi's Tao Te Ching through the I Ching and into the broader current of Chinese metaphysics, there is a concept called the Tao, the Way, the underlying principle of reality that precedes and generates all individual things. The Tao is not a god in the Western sense. It is not a personal creator. It is more like a field, a dynamic, self-organizing ground from which all phenomena arise and into which they return. What is specifically relevant here is the Taoist understanding of correspondence. The Taoist tradition developed an elaborate and precise understanding of the way in which different levels of reality mirror each other. The macrocosm and the microcosm are not analogous by metaphor. They are structurally identical because they arise from the same ground. What happens at the level of the cosmos is reflected at the level of the individual, not by causal mechanism, but by the structural identity of the patterns that the Tao generates at every scale. The I Ching, the ancient Chinese book of changes that is at least 3,000 years old in its current form and significantly older in its origins, is built entirely on this principle. It is a technology for reading the correspondence between the inner state and the outer moment. When you consult the I Ching in the traditional way, you use a random process, the casting of yarrow stalks or coins, to generate a hexagram, a pattern of 6 lines that points to a specific teaching. The assumption underlying this practice is not that the random process is being controlled by a supernatural force. The assumption is that the random process, at the moment of consultation, is embedded in the same field as the inner state of the person consulting it, and that the pattern generated by the process will therefore reflect the pattern of the inner state with the same precision that an entangled particle reflects the state of its partner. Jung was deeply familiar with the I Ching. He wrote the foreword to the first major Western translation of it, by Richard Wilhelm, and he described his experience with it in terms that precisely parallel his description of synchronicity. He was not claiming that the I Ching was magic. He was claiming that it was a technology for making the acausal, meaning-based connections of the quantum field visible in a structured way. The ancient traditions were not doing primitive science. They were doing something that modern science has only recently developed the instruments to confirm. They were mapping the layer beneath the surface of experience, the layer where the boundary between inner and outer dissolves, where the field is one, where meaning is structural rather than projected. They called it by different names in different traditions: the Tao, Brahman, the plenum, the void. The Akashic field, a term from the Vedic tradition referring to the all-pervasive medium through which information moves without physical carrier. The names are different. The layer they are pointing at is the same. And now I want to go one layer deeper still. Because we have established what synchronicity is at the quantum level, and what the ancient traditions understood about the field that produces it. But we have not yet addressed the most important question. The question that changes how you live, not just how you think. Why does the field send synchronicities at specific moments and not others? What determines when the veil thins? What is the mechanism by which the inner state resonates with the outer event in a way that produces the experience of being responded to by reality itself? This is where the layer beneath the layer opens into something that most discussions of synchronicity never reach. And it requires us to look carefully at what synchronicities actually are when you examine the pattern of them, not just the individual instances, but the pattern across a life. If you look at when synchronicities cluster, and they do cluster, they do not distribute evenly across the ordinary days of a life. You find something consistent. They cluster at thresholds, at moments of transition, of decision, of crisis, of opening. They appear with the highest frequency and the highest intensity at the moments when the surface structure of a life is under the most pressure, when old certainties are cracking, when the identity you have been carrying is being questioned from within, when you are standing at a crossroads and the path forward is not clear. This is not a coincidence within the phenomenon of synchronicity. It is the phenomenon telling you something about its own mechanism. The surface structure of a life, the fixed beliefs, the habitual interpretations, the settled sense of who you are and what is real, functions as a kind of filter. It is a layer of condensed assumption that sits between you and the quantum field. When that surface is intact and solid, the signals from the field are there, but they are filtered out before they reach your awareness. You are too committed to the surface to notice what is coming from below it. When the surface cracks, when a crisis or a transition or a genuine question tears a hole in the settled structure of your assumptions, the filter is temporarily removed. The signals from the field come through, and what you experience as synchronicity is the field communicating through the gap. This is why the most powerful synchronicities in most people's lives occur during the most difficult periods. The grief that opens something, the failure that dismantles a false certainty, the illness that strips away the noise of ordinary life and leaves you in a silence where the deeper signal can finally be heard. These are not punishments. They are thinnings of the veil. They are moments when the surface becomes permeable enough that the depth can speak. And this is also why synchronicities often carry a specific quality of guidance. Not the vague, general sense that the universe is friendly, though that may be part of it, but specific, precise guidance about the exact question you are carrying. The book that falls open to the page about the specific thing you are afraid to do. The conversation you overhear that addresses the exact doubt you have not spoken aloud. The number that appears repeatedly on the day you are trying to decide whether to take the risk. The field is not sending random signals. The field is responding to the specific resonance of your inner state. And the inner state that produces the strongest resonance, the clearest signal, is not a calm, settled, certain state. It is a genuinely open state, a state of real questioning, real not knowing, real willingness to receive an answer you have not already decided on. This is the layer that most people miss. They want synchronicities to confirm what they have already decided. They want the universe to ratify their existing plan, and sometimes it does. But the deepest synchronicities, the ones that genuinely shift the trajectory of a life, come not when you are certain, but when you are genuinely, vulnerably open. When you have let go of the surface structure enough that the depth can reach you. Let me tell you about two people. Not real people in the sense of individuals I can name with certainty, but real in the sense that their experience is drawn from the pattern of what actually happens, the composite of what the phenomenon looks like when you follow it carefully through a life. There was a woman named Mara who had spent 15 years building a career in a field she had chosen for its security rather than its meaning. She was competent, respected, and quietly miserable in a way she had learned to keep beneath the surface of her professional life. She had a set of beliefs about herself that functioned as a kind of cage, that she was not creative enough for the work she actually wanted to do, that it was too late to change, that the practical life she had built was the real life, and the other life, the one that felt like hers, was a fantasy she needed to outgrow. One afternoon, sitting in a meeting she had sat through hundreds of times, something in her snapped, not dramatically, quietly. A small interior crack in the surface of the story she had been telling herself. She did not say anything. She finished the meeting. She drove home. But something had shifted in her inner state. Some layer of certainty had given way, and she was, without quite knowing it, genuinely open in a way she had not been in years. That evening, she picked up a book she had bought months ago and never opened. She opened it at random to a passage about a painter who had spent 20 years doing work that was not his work, and who had finally, in his late 40s, allowed himself to make the thing he had been afraid to make, and who described the experience as returning to a room he had been locked out of for decades. She read the passage 3 times. She felt it in her body in a way that reading rarely produced. She put the book down and sat in the silence. The next morning, she received an email from someone she had met briefly at a conference 2 years earlier, someone she had almost no relationship with, asking if she would be interested in consulting on a project that was exactly, with a specificity that stunned her, in the field she had been afraid to enter. The email had been written the previous afternoon, at approximately the same time she had been sitting in the meeting where something cracked. Mara could have explained this away. She almost did. The email was probably coincidence. The book passage was probably her own projection. She had probably been unconsciously moving toward this change for months, and was simply noticing confirming signals more readily now that her attention had shifted. All of those explanations are available. All of them are surface explanations. All of them stop at the level of classical causality and refuse to go deeper. What the deeper layer says is this: Mara's inner state, in the moment of genuine opening, resonated with a possibility that had been present in the quantum field all along. The email had been written, the book had been on her shelf, the person she needed to connect with had been in her extended network. None of these things were created by her opening. They were already there in the field of possibility. What the opening did was collapse the wave function. It created the conditions for the possible to become actual. The veil thinned and the depth spoke. She took the consulting work. It changed everything. Not easily, not without fear, but completely. Now let me tell you about a man named Theo. Theo was not in crisis when his synchronicities began. He was, by most measures, doing well. But he had a question he could not put down, a question about whether the life he was building was the life he was supposed to be building, a question he kept pushing below the surface because it had no practical answer, and he did not have time for impractical questions. The synchronicities that came to Theo were not dramatic. They were small and he almost missed them. He kept seeing a particular symbol, a spiral, in places he would not have expected to see it. On a piece of graffiti he passed every day that he had never noticed before. On the cover of a magazine in a waiting room. In the grain of a piece of wood he was working with. He noted it, smiled, and moved on. Then he began to notice that the spiral kept appearing at specific moments, not randomly throughout his day, but specifically in the moments when he was closest to the question he kept pushing down. When he was about to make a decision that moved him further from the life that felt like his. When he was about to say yes to something that was good but not right. Theo, unlike Mara, did not have a dramatic opening. He had a slow accumulation of small signals that, taken together, formed a pattern he could not ignore, and the pattern was not pointing him toward a specific action. It was pointing him toward a specific question. The spiral, which in many traditions is a symbol of the path inward, of descent toward the center, of the movement from surface to depth, was appearing every time he was about to move further from his center. It was not telling him what to do, it was asking him to notice what he was doing. He began to pay attention differently. He began to treat the signals not as answers, but as invitations to look more carefully at the question. And over the course of about a year, the accumulated attention produced a clarity that no single dramatic synchronicity could have produced. He began to understand the shape of his own life from the inside, the places where the surface had calcified over something that was still alive beneath it, the choices that had been made from fear rather than from the deeper knowing that was always there, beneath the noise. Both Mara and Theo were changed by their synchronicities. But what changed them was not the synchronicities themselves. What changed them was what they did with the synchronicities. Mara allowed the signal to open her further. Theo followed the signal inward. Both of them, in different ways, did the one thing that the quantum field requires of an observer who wants to receive its communications clearly. They stopped treating the surface as the whole of reality. They became willing to look beneath it. And this brings us to the practice, because everything I have described to you so far is still, in a sense, conceptual. It is the map. What you need now is the direct experience of the territory, and the territory is accessible right now, in this moment, not as a future possibility, but as a present reality that is already here, already operating, already sending signals that are passing through you even as you listen to this. Here is the practice. I want you to do this now, not later, not when you have more time. Now. Think of one thing in your life that you have been treating as settled. One thing you have decided is fixed, finished, determined. It might be a belief about yourself. Something you have concluded is simply true about who you are. It might be a situation you have decided is not going to change. It might be a relationship you have written off. A door you have decided is closed. A possibility you have filed under not for me. Whatever it is, find the one thing that has the most settled, solid, finished quality in your experience right now. Now feel the texture of that certainty. Notice how it sits in your body. Notice how it feels to hold something as decided. There is a particular kind of contraction that comes with certainty, a narrowing of the field of perception, a closing off of peripheral awareness. The certain mind is a closed system. It is not receiving new information because it has already decided what the information means. Now, without trying to change your belief about this thing, without forcing yourself to hope or to pretend, I want you to do one thing. I want you to introduce a genuine question, not a rhetorical question, not a question that is really a statement in disguise, a real question. What if there is a layer beneath this that I have not seen? Not as an affirmation, as a genuine inquiry, as a real opening of the aperture. Feel what happens in your body when you do that. Feel the difference between the contracted certainty and the open question. The open question has a different quality. It is not comfortable necessarily. Genuine openness often has an edge of vulnerability to it, because it means releasing the protection of knowing. But it has a different quality of aliveness. It has the quality of a system that is now capable of receiving information it was previously filtering out. This is the state in which synchronicities occur, not the state of confident expectation, not the state of anxious searching, but the state of genuine, grounded, open inquiry. The state in which you have released enough of the surface certainty to allow the depth to speak. Stay in that state for the rest of this transmission if you can, and then, after this transmission ends, carry it with you into the ordinary moments of your day. Carry the question into the grocery store, into the conversation you were not planning to have, into the book that catches your eye on the shelf, into the song that comes on at the moment you are thinking about the thing you cannot resolve. Carry the genuine openness and notice what the field sends back. Because here is what I need to tell you about the way synchronicities work in practice, the layer that most people miss even when they are paying attention. Synchronicities do not always look like what you expect them to look like. The field does not send its signals in the form you have decided they should take. It sends them in the form that will reach you, which is often the form you would least expect, because the forms you expect are the ones your surface filtering is already prepared to intercept and neutralize. The signal comes through the crack, not through the door. It comes through the thing you almost ignored, the fragment of conversation you almost walked past, the impulse you almost dismissed as random. The field is precise, but it is not predictable. And the more you try to predict the form the signal will take, the more you narrow the aperture and filter out the actual signal. This is why the most common mistake people make with synchronicity is to go looking for it, to scan the environment for signs, to assign meaning to everything, to try to read the universe like a code book. This is the surface version of synchronicity awareness. It looks like openness, but it is actually a more sophisticated form of control. You are not opening to the field. You are trying to manage the field, to coax it into sending signals in forms you can recognize and interpret. The deeper practice is not scanning, it is receiving. It is the difference between turning up the volume on the noise and learning to be quiet enough to hear the signal that was always there beneath the noise. The field is always communicating. The question is not whether the signal is being sent. The question is whether you are in a state that allows you to receive it. And the state that allows you to receive it is not a special state. It is not a meditative state or an altered state, or a state that requires any particular practice or preparation. It is simply the state of genuine presence, of being fully in the moment you are actually in, rather than in the moment you are rehearsing or reviewing. The state of being here, now, with the question you are actually carrying, not the question you have decided you should be carrying. The field speaks in the present, always in the present. A synchronicity is always a present moment event. It is the convergence of an inner state and an outer event in this moment, not in the past or the future. And the reason most people miss most synchronicities is that they are not in the present moment. They are in the past, in the story of what has already happened and what it means. Or they are in the future, in the projection of what might happen and whether it will be okay. The present moment, where the field speaks, is the one they are passing through on the way to somewhere else. This is why every major contemplative tradition, from the Buddhist emphasis on mindfulness to the Sufi practice of presence, to the Christian mystical tradition of recollection, to the Taoist principle of Wu Wei, effortless action in alignment with the flow of the Tao places such emphasis on presence, not as a relaxation technique, not as a stress management strategy, as the fundamental perceptual condition for receiving the communications of the field. You cannot receive a signal you are not present enough to notice. And there is something else about the way synchronicities communicate that I want to make precise, because the precision matters. Synchronicities do not only confirm, they also redirect, they also warn, they also complicate. The field is not a validation machine. It is not sending signals designed to make you feel good about the choices you have already made. It is sending signals designed to orient you toward your deepest alignment, which is not always the same as your current direction. Some synchronicities feel like a yes, like the universe opening a door you had been afraid to knock on, like confirmation that the path you are on is the right one. These are real and they are important, but some synchronicities feel more like a stop sign, like a pattern of obstacles so precisely targeted that they cannot be attributed to bad luck, like a repeated collision with the same wall from different directions, as though the field is trying to show you that this particular direction is not where the depth lies. And some synchronicities are not comfortable at all. They are the kind that force you to look at something you have been avoiding. The chance encounter with the person whose life shows you exactly what your life will look like if you continue on your current path. The book you pick up randomly that describes your situation with an accuracy that feels like surveillance. The dream that will not leave you, that keeps returning with the same image, the same quality of urgency, until you finally pay attention to what it is trying to show you. The field is not cruel in these moments. It is precise. It is sending the signal that your inner state has generated, the signal that corresponds to the question your life is actually asking, even if you have not yet consciously formulated the question. The synchronicity is the question made visible in the external world. It is the depth speaking in the language of the surface, using the events and encounters and objects of ordinary life as its vocabulary. This is why the response to a synchronicity is never simply to feel it and move on. The response that the field is inviting is inquiry. What is this showing me? What layer of my situation does this illuminate? What is the question that this event is the answer to? Not as a frantic search for meaning, but as a genuine, grounded, curious investigation of what is being communicated. Because synchronicities carry information, real, specific information about your situation, your direction, your alignment with the deepest current of your own life. The information is not always comfortable, but it is always relevant. And the only way to receive it is to be willing to look at what it is actually showing you, not what you hoped it would show you. Is there a pattern that dissolved the moment you looked directly at it? Or a truth that was hidden in plain sight until you were finally ready to see it? Tell me about it in the comments. What was the synchronicity, and what layer did it lift? Let me go one layer deeper now, because there is something beneath the mechanism of synchronicity that we have not yet reached. Something beneath the quantum field, beneath the ancient maps, beneath the practice of receiving. Something that is, in a sense, the core of what synchronicity is actually about. The deepest layer is this. A synchronicity is not primarily a message from the universe. It is a recognition. It is the moment in which you recognize something that was always true, but that you had been, for whatever reason, unable to see. The external event does not create the truth it reflects. It reveals a truth that was already present in the depth of your situation, already operational in the field of your life, already shaping the current beneath the surface. The synchronicity makes visible what was invisible. It lifts the veil on a truth that was already there. This is why synchronicities often feel like remembering rather than learning, like recognizing something you have always known but somehow forgotten. The feeling is not the feeling of receiving new information from outside. It is the feeling of having something confirmed from within. The external event and the internal knowing converge, and in that convergence, the veil between them dissolves. And what you are left with is not information, but recognition. And recognition is different from belief. Belief is a surface operation. It is the mind accepting a proposition as true, holding a thought and deciding it is valid. Recognition is deeper. It is the whole system, mind and body, and whatever is deeper than both, arriving at a knowing that does not require argument or evidence because it is not a conclusion. It is a direct perception. The way you know that you are in a room is not because you have argued yourself into believing it. You perceive it directly, through your senses, through your presence in the actual space. Recognition has that quality. It lands in the body as well as the mind. It has a physical signature, a settling, a rightness, a sense of something clicking into place. When a synchronicity produces genuine recognition, you know it. Not because it matches your expectations, but because it lands below your expectations, below the level where expectations operate. In the place where the deeper knowing lives, the knowing that has been there all along, beneath the noise of the surface, waiting for the right moment of clarity to become perceptible. This is the deepest layer of what synchronicity is. It is the field showing you what you already know at the level of the field. It is the depth speaking to the depth, using the surface as its medium. The external event is the form. The recognition is the content. And the recognition was always already there, in you, beneath the surface of what you thought you knew. Now I want to address something that most treatments of synchronicity avoid, because it requires a kind of intellectual honesty that is uncomfortable but essential. The question of discernment. Not everything that feels meaningful is a synchronicity. Not every coincidence is a signal. Not every pattern you notice in the noise is information from the field. The human mind is extraordinarily good at finding patterns, so good that it finds them even where they do not exist. This is called apophenia, the tendency to perceive meaningful connections between unrelated things, and it is a real phenomenon that needs to be taken seriously by anyone who is genuinely trying to work with synchronicity rather than simply feel comforted by it. The surface version of synchronicity awareness is pattern seeking without discernment. It is the mind that has decided the universe is sending it personal messages and proceeds to find those messages everywhere, in license plates and song lyrics and the number of steps from the car to the front door. This is not synchronicity. This is the mind using the concept of synchronicity to avoid the discomfort of genuine uncertainty. It is the surface pretending to be the depth. The deeper practice requires discernment. It requires the ability to distinguish between the signal and the noise, between genuine resonance and wishful pattern matching. And the way to develop that discernment is not to become more skeptical, not to dismiss everything that feels meaningful, but to become more honest about the quality of your inner state at the moment of the apparent synchronicity. Ask this: am I in a state of genuine openness, or am I in a state of searching? Am I receiving, or am I scanning? Is this experience landing below my expectations, in the place of genuine recognition, or is it landing exactly where I hoped it would land, in the place of confirmation of what I already wanted to believe? The signal from the field has a particular quality. It has the quality of surprise within recognition. It is both unexpected and immediately familiar. It does not just confirm what you already thought. It shows you something you had not quite seen, even if it was always there. It lands below the level of your hopes and fears, in the place that is quieter than both. The noise has a different quality. It has the quality of relief. It confirms. It reassures. It gives you permission to do what you already wanted to do, or to feel what you already wanted to feel. It lands in the place of your hopes, not below them. This distinction is not always easy to make. Sometimes the signal and the noise are mixed. Sometimes a genuine synchronicity is received by a mind that is not quite open enough to receive it cleanly, and it gets partially distorted by hope or fear on the way in. This is why the practice is not a one-time event, but an ongoing cultivation of the quality of inner listening that allows the signal to come through more clearly over time. The ancient traditions understood this. The Taoist tradition has a concept called Ting, which means listening with the whole being, with the body and the spirit, as well as the ears. Not listening for what you want to hear. Listening with the whole of your attention in a state of genuine not knowing for what is actually being communicated. The I Ching is a technology for cultivating this kind of listening. You do not consult it to get the answer you want. You consult it to hear the answer that is already present in the field, whether or not it matches your preference. The Vedantic tradition has a parallel concept in the practice of Viveka, discrimination, the ability to distinguish between the real and the apparent, between the signal from the depth and the noise of the surface. Viveka is not skepticism. It is not the dismissal of experience. It is the trained capacity to perceive with clarity, to receive without distortion, to know the difference between what the field is actually showing you and what your surface mind is projecting onto the field. Developing this discernment is part of what it means to work seriously with synchronicity, and it is also, not coincidentally, part of what it means to develop as a conscious being. The same qualities that make you a clear receiver of the field's communications, genuine openness, presence, willingness to receive what is actually there rather than what you hoped would be there, are the same qualities that make you more fully alive, more fully yourself, more fully in contact with the depth of your own experience. Synchronicity is not just an interesting phenomenon, it is a teacher. Every genuine synchronicity is showing you something about the nature of the field and about your relationship to it. And over time, if you work with synchronicities rather than simply collecting them, they teach you something that cannot be taught in any other way. The felt sense of what it is like to be in alignment with the field. The specific, embodied quality of being in the current rather than fighting against it. The difference between moving through your life from the surface and moving through it from the depth. That felt sense, once you have it, becomes a navigational instrument, not infallible, not a replacement for judgment and discernment, but a real instrument. A way of knowing that operates below the level of the rational mind, that has access to information the rational mind cannot reach, that has been described in virtually every wisdom tradition on earth as the deepest form of knowing available to a human being. The Quakers call it the inner light. The Sufis call it the heart's intelligence. The Taoists call it Te, the virtue or power that flows through a person who is aligned with the Tao. The Vedantists call it Prajna, the wisdom that arises from direct perception rather than inference. The modern psychologist might call it deep intuition or somatic knowing. The names are different. What they are all pointing at is the same thing. The capacity to receive information from the field that underlies the surface of experience, and to act from that information with confidence and clarity. Synchronicities are the moments when that capacity becomes undeniable, when the field communicates so precisely and so unmistakably that the surface mind cannot quite explain it away. They are, in this sense, not just experiences to be received, but invitations to develop. invitations to cultivate the quality of inner listening that allows the depth to speak more clearly, more often, with less noise in the way. And this brings me to the question I want to leave you with, the question that is, in a sense, the deepest layer of everything we have been exploring today. If synchronicities are the field communicating through the gap in the surface structure of your certainties, then the question is not just how to receive the synchronicities that come. The question is what you are doing with the certainties that prevent the field from reaching you. What are the settled, solid, finished beliefs that are functioning as filters, blocking the signal that is always being sent? What is the surface structure of your assumptions about yourself and your life that is so thick, so solid, so defended that the depth cannot penetrate it? Because the field is not waiting for a special moment to communicate with you. It is communicating now. It has always been communicating. The synchronicities you have missed, the ones that came and went while you were too certain to notice them, the ones that arrived in a form you did not recognize because you were too committed to a particular form, those are not lost. The field does not give up. It sends the signal again in a different form, through a different crack. It will keep sending it, in increasing intensity and decreasing subtlety, until either you receive it or the surface structure hardens to the point where the signal can no longer get through. The hardening of the surface is what the traditions call spiritual death. Not physical death, but the death of the capacity to receive, to be moved, to be changed by what the depth is showing you. It is the state of a person who has become so identified with the surface, so committed to the certainty of what they know and who they are, that the field can no longer reach them. They are alive at the surface and dead beneath it. You are not that person. You are here, listening to this, which means some part of you is still open. Some part of you is still capable of genuine inquiry, still willing to look beneath the surface of what you think you know, still alive to the possibility that the field has something to show you that you have not yet seen. That part of you is the part the field is speaking to. And what it is saying through every synchronicity that has ever stopped you in your tracks, through every moment of uncanny precision that you could not quite explain away, through every instance of being responded to by reality in a way that felt too specific to be random, is this: you are not alone in this. You are not a separate self navigating an indifferent universe.
You are an expression of the field, embedded in the field, in communication with the field at every moment, and the field is not indifferent to you. It is not indifferent to anything. It is the ground of all things, and it is alive with the same intelligence that organizes galaxies and generates consciousness and produces, in the moments when the surface is thin enough, the precise, unmistakable signal of a synchronicity. The universe is not sending you signs because you are special in the way of being chosen above others. It is sending you signs because you are not separate from it, because the boundary between you and the field is a surface, and the depth on both sides of that surface is the same depth. The message in every synchronicity is ultimately the same message, delivered in 1,000 different specific forms. The separation is not real.
The surface is not the whole of what you are. The depth is here. It has always been here, and it is speaking. Before I close, I want to say something about the community that gathers around this kind of exploration, because the exploration of synchronicity is not well served by isolation. The surface culture, the culture of mechanical causality, and the dismissal of anything that cannot be explained by it, is not a friendly environment for taking synchronicities seriously. Most people who have had powerful synchronicities have also had the experience of trying to describe them to someone who responded with skepticism or gentle concern, and felt the experience diminish in the telling. Not because it was less real, but because the social field of skepticism exerts a pressure that makes it harder to hold the depth of what you experienced. There is something important that happens when people who are working with synchronicity seriously gather together and share their experiences. Not to validate each other's wishful thinking, not to create an echo chamber of magical thinking, but to collectively develop the discernment and the vocabulary and the quality of attention that the work requires. When you hear someone else describe a synchronicity that has the precise, surprising yet familiar quality of the genuine signal, and you recognize it from your own experience, something clarifies. The pattern becomes more visible. The signal-to-noise ratio improves, not just in the sharing, but in your own future receiving. So if you have had a synchronicity that changed something, that opened something, that redirected you or confirmed something you had been afraid to trust, I want to hear about it. Not because I need evidence that the phenomenon is real, but because the specific, particular, concrete details of your experience are the substance that this exploration is built from. The abstraction is the connective tissue. Your experience is the content. Drop it in the comments. What was the synchronicity? What was the inner state that preceded it? What did it show you that you had not been able to see from the surface? What layer did it lift? And if this transmission has opened something in you, if it has thinned the surface enough that something from the depth is now perceptible that was not perceptible before, then the most useful thing you can do with that opening is not to close it with the next distraction. Stay in it for a while. Carry the genuine question into the rest of your day. Notice what the field sends back. If you sense that someone in your life is standing at a threshold, carrying a question they cannot quite articulate, feeling the signal but not yet knowing what to call it, share this with them. When you give someone access to a layer they sensed but could not reach alone, the veil lifts for both of you. You create a shared depth between two consciousness fields, and the collective capacity to see beneath the surface grows stronger for the sharing. And if this is the kind of transmission you want to return to, the quiet of early morning or the stillness before sleep is when the surface noise is lowest and the deeper layers are most accessible. This one rewards a second listen from that place, because here is what I know about the way this works. The moment you begin to take synchronicities seriously, the moment you stop filing them under coincidence and start receiving them as communications, the frequency increases. Not because the field suddenly starts sending more signals, because you become capable of receiving more of the signals that were always being sent. The aperture opens, the filter thins, and what was always there, beneath the surface of the ordinary, begins to come through with a clarity that makes the ordinary extraordinary. The world you thought you were living in, the flat, mechanical, indifferent world of surface causality, was never the whole world. It was the thinnest, outermost layer of a world with infinite depth. And the depth has been trying to reach you for as long as you have been alive. Every synchronicity you have ever experienced was a moment when it succeeded. Every one you missed was a signal that got filtered out before it could reach you. You have been living at the surface of something that has no bottom. And now you know it, and the knowing changes the receiving. The veil once seen is already thinner. The depth once acknowledged is already closer. The signal, once you know to listen for it, is already louder. You are not waiting for the universe to speak. It has been speaking. You are learning to hear it. And that learning, that progressive refinement of the capacity to receive what the field is always sending, is not a technique or a practice in the ordinary sense. It is the development of a faculty that was always yours, that was always there beneath the surface of the self you thought you were, waiting for you to look deep enough to find it. What has been revealed today cannot be unrevealed. You now know the layer beneath synchronicity. You know the quantum field that produces it, the ancient traditions that mapped it, the mechanism of the surface filter, and the crack through which the signal comes. The difference between the signal and the noise, the felt quality of genuine recognition, the deepest layer of what the field is actually communicating through every synchronicity it sends. You are no longer someone who has mysterious experiences they cannot explain. You are someone who understands the layer beneath the mystery. And understanding the layer beneath the mystery does not diminish the mystery. It deepens it. Because the more clearly you see the mechanism, the more extraordinary it becomes that such a mechanism exists, that the universe is built in such a way that the inner and the outer can speak to each other across the surface of separation, that the field is structured to communicate with the consciousness that arises within it, that you, embedded in the quantum field, are not a passive receiver of random events, but a resonant node in a web of meaning that extends in all directions, to every scale, from the subatomic to the cosmic. This was always true. It was always operating. You just had not looked beneath the surface of it yet. Now you have. And now you cannot look away. The veil is thinner than you think, and you have just seen through it.